Hello everybody, welcome to another video. Today is the 27th of June, but it's about to be the 28th of June. And today we're going to be talking about the situation in Kherson and then also about some territorial changes to the Bakhmut sector. Let's begin by looking at what's been going on in Kherson because there's a lot to go over here. And so we know that the Ukrainians, they are moving some of their forces in the direction of the city of Kherson itself, which they took over in November, if you recall. And then there's also reports from Russian sources that the Ukrainians are moving some of their equipment towards the town of Novokakhovka. And so they don't actually have control over Novokakhovka. They have control of a town directly to the north of it, Kozhatske. And so their goal would be in the long term, at least, to secure Novokakhovka, which is one of the major cities in the Kherson region that Russia still controls. And so we're hearing that they're sending a lot of supplies, a lot of ammo crates, a lot of reinforcements, and the specific units I have mapped out. I don't have them shown over here right now, but on my map, if you click the table for that, then you could see every single specific unit that's in the sector, and I'll be adding to it as time goes on. They're also going to be moving an S-300 battery to the town of Sadove, which is the town over here. So it is on the Inhalets River. It's also very close to the Dnieper River. And so this is due to the fact that Russia has been increasing its airstrikes on Ukrainian positions to the north of the Dnieper River. There's been reported instances of Russian guided bombs attacking Ukrainian positions in towns like Kherson City, Antonivka, Sadove itself as well, but most of it has been concentrated around Antonivka from what I've been reading because Ukraine has been removing a lot of resources specifically to Antonivka. And you can see that Antonivka is the town where you have the E97 highway, which then connects to the Antonovsky Bridge. And the Antonovsky Bridge obviously is damaged. You can't use it at the moment. And although the pylons are still up for the most part, so it could be reconstituted in the future, nobody's really using it now. But either way, the E97 road is still important because the Russians are sending attacks and sending different armored vehicles to attack Ukrainian positions on their little bridgehead, which they have. Their little bridgehead is over here. You can see around the town of Dachi. And so they're sending their vehicles to attack the Ukrainian positions over here, which are manned by about 100 infantrymen. And they transfer back and forth on speedboats across the Dnieper River at night, and that's also how they get resupplies. And so they're the Russians, in this case, they're attacking on the E97 highway, using that road to try to repel the Ukrainian bridgehead and push it back across the river. So far, the Ukrainians have been able to hold steady, and they have been able to maintain their small contingent in the town of Dachi. So that's where most of the fighting is being located. But just to go back to the situation in Antonivka, the Ukrainians in this general area, they are setting up these electronic warfare systems. So they're trying to jam the Russian Lancet and FVP drones, which they've used really to great effect in a lot of different sectors of fighting in order to drop these smaller munitions on mobile Ukrainian groups. And so that's a big problem that Ukraine has been seeing, especially in Kherson, where usually it's these small infantry groups that are very mobile that they're moving around. And so it's easier to use drones to drop a smaller munition on a specific position instead of calling in airstrikes. And so that's why they're moving into electronic warfare systems. And it is making it more difficult for Russian drone crews to operate. Russian sources also report that the Ukrainians are in the process of constructing a pontoon bridge across the Dnieper River around the town of Antonivka, maybe here, maybe here. Let's actually zoom in on Antonivka and see where a pontoon bridge could be built. Maybe it would be built in an area where the ports and the docks are set up, in the area that's the least wide within the river. But we have reports that different sapper units of the Ukrainian armed forces and different building components for a pontoon bridge are being shipped to the city or town of Antonivka. And so this comes as Russia is shelling the town of Antonivka very heavily. There's some videos of the footage of that. And then there's also some guided strikes, as I was saying before. Perhaps they're using the Fab 500 bombs and their modifications to become basically a JDAM equivalent. but I haven't seen any kind of confirmation of this. But I know that the Russians do have still a significant stockpile of Fab 500s, especially the modified one with the kits. They've been mass producing since early 2023, and so it would make sense for the Russians to use this on some of Ukraine's fortifications, some of their positions that they've set up in the city of Kherson itself that aren't as mobile, that the mobile forces should be struck more so by drones, but then you have a lot of these larger structures that Ukraine is using in the city of Kherson itself that could be struck by the Fab 500s, so we'll have to see about that. In addition, we know that the Ukrainians, they are continuing to send reinforcements across the river. They have not built the pontoon bridge yet, although that will increase the volume of men and the equipment that could be sent across the river. That will allow more company-sized units to move across, and that's when you'll start to see more tanks. I know there was a report that there were like 3 tanks that were sent across the river recently. That was according to Rybar, if I recall correctly, but I don't know if it was a translation error or something. They might have been referring to some sort of amphibious assault vehicle, and then it got mistranslated as a tank, because that would make more sense. But either way, it does show that some of the more light vehicles are being transported across the river already, and then setting up a pontoon bridge would make that volume increase much more, and then it would allow the Ukrainians to not just defend against the Russian assaults along the E97 highway, but then also conduct some of their own counterattacks. And then the eventual goal, as we're seeing from where they even set up the bridgehead, which you can see is the most prominent around the E97 highway, they could reach the bridge, the road bridge across the Konka River. So there's a bridge that goes across the Konka River. There's actually two sides to it. And so that's still the E97 highway, and it's still standing. And this would give the Ukrainians an opportunity to cross the Konka River, move all of their equipment, their heavy equipment in large volumes, and then directly reach the town of Oleshki. Oleshki is a major major city where you have a lot of these different Russian units that are fighting on the front line, trying to push out this brigade. And so reaching this major city could be a great base of operations for Ukraine if they were able to take it over. And I know that they already have a bridgehead in some of the docks to the west of Oleshki, and so they could probably link up around some of these flatlands, but they would, of course, have to cross over the Konka River in that specific direction, like over here you could see in blue. And that's a part of the Ukrainian plans. We also know that the Ukrainians, they destroyed actually a Russian BMD-2 that was trying to advance along the E97 highway and attack the Ukrainian positions on the bridgehead, which just goes to show that the Russians are trying to attack and the Ukrainians are defending. They also do have some artillery capabilities and counter battery fire in this area. But again, no new changes to the front line in Kherson just as of yet. Let's move on to the situation around Bakhmut, where we do have some interesting footage that came out. So, what's been going on around basically the Donbass Canal and also the town of Kurdyumivka is that the Ukrainians have been able to fully clear out the Russian positions to the west of the Donbass Canal. And so this entire area in blue was previously under Russian control, a lot of different tree lines, ditches and trenches that were set up. And the Ukrainians, they methodically cleared it out. And this was mainly done by the 28th Mechanized Brigade, also in conjunction with the 3rd Assault Brigade, which was made up of former Azov fighters. And then they basically formed this new unit after Mariupol, which is now fighting around Kurdyumivka. And so the 3rd Assault Brigade also played a major role in this. And the 3rd Assault Brigade works in tandem with this drone group called Hornet. And so that Hornet group, there's a lot of footage that they post that they're responsible for different attacks with munitions being dropped within the towns of Kurdyumivka, Zelenopilia, Rizarnivka, etc. And so that's also causing damage to Russian forces before they even reach the fighting on the front lines. And so they've been able to fully clear the Russian positions, which now means that they're very close to Kurdyumivka. There's actually a video here that I've linked showing the process of pushing out the Russian positions along this bush line. And so what was going on over here, and I'll actually show my tweet for this because I have it over here right now. So you can see that the 1st Mechanized Company of the 28th Mechanized Brigade, they successfully cleared the Russian positions to the west of the Donbass Canal. So first, the Ukrainians, they fired these mine clearing charges, and that basically detonates the mines beforehand, before any sort of vehicle advances through the fields. And then after they did that, the Ukrainians, they sent in 3 armored personnel carriers. They tried to suppress the Russian fire that was coming from their trenches that were adjacent to the canal and on the bush line, you could say. And then they dropped off these Ukrainian infantry groups near a local tree line. And then those Ukrainian infantrymen, they had the task of clearing out the trenches, and they were successful. Ukrainian sources, I can't confirm this, but they say that 35 Russians died in the fighting for the trenches, and that 40 escaped. They crossed over the canal back to Kurdyumivka, and then that a few were taken POW. And so the Ukrainians, once they were able to clear out all of the Russian positions, I'll actually show this on the map, they were able to hoist their flag over a building which is located in the Kurdyumivka pumping station. So it's just to the west of Kurdyumivka. There's a house over here. You can see it's even on the map. So the Ukrainian forces, they reached as far as this little strip of land in between the 2 above ground or on ground canal areas, because like in this area over here, the canal is underground. So there's a tiny strip of land that you could stand on, and that's where you have different pumping stations and the houses over there that are operating the canal in that local area. And so the Ukrainians, they made their way to that area. They raised a flag, which means that they are very, very close, because this is the Ukrainian fort position, and then the Russian positions are in the town itself. So they are very close, like within a couple hundred meters of the town itself at this point. And so you could begin to see fights for the town itself coming up very soon. And that would occur through this specific strip of land, which is about 275 meters in width. So let's go back to my tweet for a second, because I have a good visual over there. And so the Ukrainians, they could also directly assault Kurdyumivka from other directions, like by crossing the canal. Here's the canal for you guys. This is how it looks like right now. Here's a photo of Russian troops as they're crossing over the canal, withdrawing following a Ukrainian successful assault. You can see there's still water in there. It's not completely drained, but the levels are pretty low, and you could see that there's like a outline of what looks like a minor platform that allows the Russians to cross over while like not having to take off all of their like shoes and their boots, their pants, not getting that dirty. And so it's not difficult for Ukrainians, for instance, if they wanted to cross over, to just set up one of those platforms and then just go up and attack the Russian positions. Because at this point, I would say that the Russian positions in this area are adjacent to the bush lines that are to the east of the Donbass Canal. So here you can see the units. I have the visual, and then the Russian unit in this area that's trying to defend the Kurdyumivka is the 57th Guards Motor Rifle Brigade. And so we're going to have to see how that battle unfolds. But yeah, that's all for the situation over here. Let's move on to the city of Bakhmut, but before that, Klishivka. So the Ukrainians have been able to push very close to the city of Klishivka. They have been able to push very close to the fortifications to the north of Klishivka through an open field. There's also unconfirmed reports from the Ukrainian sources that they were able to advance 1 kilometer into a forested area to the north of Klishivka, which is located here. I'll circle the like general area. It's like this circle over here. So they're claiming to have control 1 kilometer deep into this area, which would mean that they would have control of the northern flank into Klishivka and would be able to begin attacking it. And that would also mean that they have control of the heights overlooking the town. But for now, I can't confirm that, but that would make it very difficult for the Russians to defend the town itself, especially if they took over this fortified area with all the different trenches. let's go to the city of Bakhmut. In this area, the Ukrainians are attacking on a broad front. They're trying to conduct multiple different localized counterattacks to see where the Russian line cracks. Remember, there's no Wagner in here anymore. It's just the regular Russian army, VDV, DPR, LPR fighters. I don't even know if there are Chechens there anymore. They might still be on the rear. And so they are in a weakened state compared to where they were a few months ago. And so the Ukrainians are trying to chip away at Russia's gains that they made over that entire period of time. They were able to succeed by taking over this piece of farmland, which was heavily contested during the Battle of Bakhmut. They've now been able to take it over, and they're trying to push back into the western outskirts of the city through Korsunskogo streets. So they haven't been able to take out over any of the houses yet, but they're trying to do that right now. They're also pushing through this minor road from Ivanivske into the like western, less dense parts of Bakhmut, where you saw like the final Ukrainian resistance at the end of the battle. They're trying to push through there. They're also trying to push through Komove back into the city. A bit to the north, the Ukrainians have been able to make some minor gains pushing towards the town of Yahidne, and they're taking over some of the local trenches in this area and some of the open fields that I would say are in between the town of Kromove and the Berkivske Reservoir. And so the entire goal of this assault in this direction is to take over Yahidne and cut off the supplies into Bakhmut from the north. Because there's several different roads that run through this axis that supply Bakhmut from the north, connected to Soledar, Yakovlivka, and other important towns in this sector. For the video, I just want to say that there's a new unit that I've added to the map, the 32nd Mechanized Brigade. They were previously being trained, basic training. Now they've been spotted in the Luhansk front shelling Russian positions in the town of Jerelny. So I have that video linked. So yeah, that's all for today in terms of frontline activity. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Goodbye.